I've started many years with promises. New lists, new goals, blank notebooks. But deep down, I carried the same version of myself as always. The same beliefs, the same patterns, the same invisible limits. And so, no matter how the calendar changed, my life stayed the same. That's when I realized that goals are pointless without identity. That the woman I wanted to be in 2026 needed to be born within me now, with different thoughts, different posture, different decisions. This transformation didn't start outside. It started in silence. In the discomfort of admitting that to change my life, I had to change roles. Stop living as an extra in my own story. Today, I want to share with you 7 movements that helped me reshape my identity. These are deep adjustments, but achievable, and once you put them into practice, 2026 won't just be a new year. It'll be the living proof of your new version. If this message already resonates with you, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and come along with me. Because no new woman is born by accident, she is built. Movement 1. I recognized that my old version was obsolete. It took a while for it to click, but when it did, it was like a sharp snap in my consciousness. I was trying to live a new life with old behaviors. I wanted different results, but I responded to situations the same way. I said I wanted growth, but I was still afraid to expose myself. I wanted more money, but I still saw myself as someone limited. And that's when I realized my identity needed updating. Just like an operating system that can't support new programs, I crashed. I froze at new opportunities. I froze when I received recognition. I even froze when everything was going well, because I didn't recognize myself in that scenario. This version that brought me here was important. She protected me. She survived difficult cycles, but she was done. She no longer represented me. That's when I decided to let go. I began to observe my patterns coldly, my repetitive thoughts, my automatic phrases, and instead of blaming myself, I started taking responsibility. Does this still serve me? Or does it only keep me stuck in who I'm no longer? The new identity didn't arrive in a single day, but it began the moment I stopped romanticizing my comfort zone. Comment. I'm leaving behind what no longer serves me. If you also understood that continuing to grow requires saying goodbye to the version you've outgrown. Movement 2. I redefined what success means to me. For a long time, I thought success was a synonym for status. Titles, recognition, a full schedule, well-edited posts with inspiring captions. But in reality, that only left me exhausted, racing to hit goals that weren't even mine, living under expectations that didn't match who I wanted to become, and accumulating a quiet sense of emptiness, even when everything looked perfect on the outside. Then I paused. I asked myself honestly, what would a truly rich life look like for me? The answer didn't come from outside. It came from discomfort, from the desire for lightness, for the freedom to say no, for time for myself, to wake up feeling that my routine actually makes sense. Redefining what success meant gave control back to me. It freed me from the urgency to please, and placed me in creation mode, not comparison mode. Today, the success I seek has to do with peace, with purpose, with autonomy, and it made me look at money differently too, as a resource to sustain that freedom, not a crutch to prop up a wounded ego. Comment. My success reflects who I am if you also decided to stop following ready-made standards and started creating your own definition of victory. Movement 3. I installed habits that reinforce who I want to be. For a long time, my habits didn't align with the woman I claimed I wanted to become. I wanted to be disciplined, but I slept in. I wanted to be prosperous, but I shopped impulsively. I wanted to feel light, but I stuffed myself with stimuli all day. All of that kept me locked in a spiral. Guilt, promises, and relapses. Until I realized a simple truth. My identity is reinforced by my daily habits. What I do every day says more about who I am than any grand plan for the weekend. That's when I made a quiet pact with myself. I started small, waking up on time, having coffee without my phone, tracking what I spent, reading 10 pages every day, breathing before reacting. It seems little, but it was a daily alignment exercise. Each micro-habit reconnected me with the version I was creating. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being coherent. And, bit by bit, without noticing, I began to respect myself more. Because no self-esteem survives a routine that betrays you every day. And no self-confidence is stronger than keeping the promises you make to yourself, even if no one's watching. Comment. My new identity is built in my habits. If you also decided that the woman emerging within you deserves rituals to match. Movement 4. I changed the way I show up in the world. I used to think that showing up meant stirring drama, making noise, or speaking louder. So I stayed quiet, swallowed my opinions, Tolerated discomfort. I chose silence over rejection, forced agreement over authenticity. And you know what that led to? Internal conflict. Because on the outside I looked calm, but inside I was screaming. Not for others, for myself. Because living out of alignment with who you are is exhausting. And demanding respect when you keep abandoning yourself just doesn't work. The turning point came when I stopped fearing what others would think and started asking myself what I was allowing. The woman I wanted to be in 2026 wasn't passive. She was clear. She was grounded. She said what needed to be said, with presence, not aggression. I started practicing, saying no to invitations out of obligation, speaking up with "this doesn't represent me" when it didn't, setting boundaries calmly. And surprisingly, people began to respect me more. Not because I demanded it, but because my energy shifted. And the world responds to our vibration, not to our unspoken intentions. Comment: I stand up with clarity and respect. If you've also realized that staying silent to keep the peace is the same as giving up on yourself. Movement 5. I rewired my mindset about money, abundance, and value. For years, I carried around beliefs I didn't even notice. Money is dirty. Making money isn't easy. Rich people aren't happy. And without realizing it, those phrases shaped my behavior, my decisions, and especially how much I allowed myself to receive. Even when opportunities came, I self-sabotaged. Charged less than I was worth. Felt embarrassed talking about price. Spent money carelessly, as if it was bound to disappear anyway. But the turning point came in a simple, almost casual moment. I heard a woman say, "You don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you deserve." That hit me deep, because I said I wanted abundance, but I believed in scarcity. I said I was worthy, but deep down I still felt undeserving. That's when the reprogramming began. New words, conscious affirmations, new behaviors. Studying finances. Paying attention to the money coming in. Respecting the money going out. And most importantly, courage to charge, negotiate, raise my standards. Abundance didn't show up like magic. It came when I stopped treating it like a miracle and started treating it as a reflection of my new identity. Comment: my rich mindset is already born if you've also decided to build a new relationship with money, without guilt, without fear, without shame. Movement 6. I took care of my language because it builds realities. Before everything changed, the way I spoke kept me stuck. Phrases like, "I can't handle this," "this isn't for me," "with my situation, no way," slipped out of my mouth without me even noticing. They seemed harmless, but each word was a brick reinforcing the wall between me and the life I said I wanted. Listening to another woman speak made me see it. She said "not yet" instead of "I can't." She said "I'm building this," not "this isn't for me." She didn't downplay herself when describing who she was. That's when it hit me. My language was the code of my identity. And if I wanted to live something different, I had to start speaking differently. It wasn't about fake positivity. It was about integrity, about stopping the self-sabotage coming from my own mouth, and beginning to use words as tools for alignment. Now I watch what I say. I cut out "I'm terrible at this" and replace it with "I'm learning how to handle this." I switch "I don't have time" for "this isn't a priority right now." And I can see how that subtlety changes my posture, my actions, and even how others perceive me. Comment: my words shape my future. If you've also realized that every powerful woman starts by changing the way she expresses herself, with intention and presence. Movement 7. I raised my standards and stopped negotiating with what weakens me. For a long time, I settled for less. Lukewarm people, half-baked opportunities, environments that didn't reflect who I was. All because deep down, I thought this was better than nothing. I said I wanted more, but kept accepting less. And that screamed louder than any cute affirmation in the mirror. The change didn't start when everything got better. It started when I stopped settling, when the inner discomfort became bigger than the fear of losing. Raising my standards wasn't about demanding more from the world. It was about demanding more from myself, about saying this no longer represents me, and holding space for the emptiness that comes before the right fit arrives. About being alone rather than poorly accompanied. About turning down anything that doesn't match my new identity, even when it looked tempting. The world responds to what you tolerate. And every time I accepted less than I deserved, I was reinforcing one message. This is what she wants. This is what she can handle. This is what she allows. Today, my no is more powerful than the desperate yes I used to give, because it comes from a place of self-worth, of clarity, from someone who understands that peace is expensive, and I'm done paying it off in emotional installments. Comment: I no longer negotiate with what diminishes me, if you've also decided to match your energy to the standard of the woman you're becoming. Movement 8. I became responsible for my own validation. For a long time, I only felt enough when someone told me I was. I needed approval to make decisions, compliments to feel beautiful, recognition to believe I was on the right track. It was like I walked around holding a broken mirror, only able to see myself through other people's eyes. And you know what that led to? Instability, insecurity, an endless cycle of doubt, comparison, and silence. This was one of the hardest shifts I had to make, accepting that no one was coming to validate me permanently, that it was my responsibility, and that as long as I waited for external recognition to act, my identity would always be in someone else's hands. The change began with small acts, celebrating my wins alone, looking in the mirror and affirming myself with honesty, making decisions aligned with my values, even if no one understood, reminding myself, I know who I am and that's enough. External validation became a bonus, not fuel. Today, I move from a more stable inner center, more mature, more free, because a rich, whole, confident woman doesn't depend on applause. She recognizes herself before she ever steps on stage. Comment: my validation comes from within. If you've also realized that your worth doesn't need an audience, only presence. It didn't happen overnight. There was no magic ritual, no ready-made manual. There was deconstruction. There was silence. There was courage to admit that, to live the life I said I wanted, I had to let go of the woman who was just surviving. Reshaping my identity was an internal, deep, and most of the time invisible process. No one saw when I cried realizing how much I'd betrayed myself. No one saw when I wrote the same affirmation for the 10th time, trying to believe it. No one saw when I almost gave up, but went to sleep anyway, hoping to wake up a little stronger. Today, when I look toward 2026, I no longer think in loose goals. I think in coherence. I think about continuing to be the woman I'm becoming, because a reshaped identity doesn't take effort to maintain. It simply lives, naturally. If something in this message spoke to you, don't ignore it. Maybe this is your turning point. Maybe today is the day you stop waiting to be recognized and start recognizing yourself. Comment: I am the version 2026 will confirm, if this message truly resonated with you. And if you haven't yet liked the video or subscribed to the channel, now's the time. This journey deserves to be witnessed and multiplied.